topic other than Korean culture. And hello to students at Nanjing University. And today's topic is Korean family. So I don't know what your prior knowledge of the Korean family is, but let's see how much you know. I have a subtitle. It's sort of fancy. Korean family, role changes and trends in marriage and divorce. So this is the lecture outline. After a brief introduction, I talk about the characteristics of marriage and family in Korea, followed by extended family and the elderly, followed by divorce, facts, laws, etc. And then, I talk about the actual divorce, the reasons why Korea has one of the higher divorce rates in the world. And finally, I talk about empty shell marriage. Type of marriage where loveless couples still stay married for various reasons, right? So we'll talk about that. Introduction, time to have some fun. What are 3 rings in marriage? You got to know the first ring, right? What's that? Wedding ring. And the second one? Engagement ring. And the third most lasting ring is? I think someone got the right answer. It's the suffering. Okay, and next, there's a Russian proverb that says, before going to war, pray once. Before going to sea, pray twice. Before getting married, pray 3 times. You know, proverb always has some truth in it, based on many years of observation and experience. A child asked his father, "Dad, in some countries, men do not know the women they are marrying until the wedding." The man said, "Son, it's the same everywhere else." I don't know if you agree with this, but I think even after you've been married to a same person for over half a century, sometimes you feel you don't know too much about, or not enough about your spouse. Here's a fancy picture. This is a picture of the last man on the moon as of last year. Jin Cernan stepped off the moon in December 1972. So the last time a man or person stepped on the moon was back in 1972. And that's him. And he left his footprints and his daughter's initials in the lunar dust. He's the, again, last man to walk on the moon, but guess what happened? So you would think that he would be enjoying his life in glory or whatever, but this happened to him. His wife divorced him, and she made this very famous remark at the time. Quote, "If you think going to the moon is hard, try staying at home and raise kids," unquote. And I'm not saying this because there happen to be many female students, but my wife is a full-time homemaker, and I would definitely say that her job of, taking care of the house, taking care of kids, raising kids, I don't think her job is any easier than what I do outside the home. I'm serious about this. So obviously, this man did not take his wife's role in the household seriously, I guess, to be a victim of her call for divorce. Anyway, so the underlying message in all these sayings is that marriage is difficult. I mean, it brings a lot of joy, but at the same time, marriage is an arduous, lifelong journey which constantly tests one's love, understanding, patience, selflessness, and tolerance toward the partner. You know, this is a wonderful sentence. I don't know if I wrote it, got it from somewhere else, but well, it's really true. Okay. Key questions discussed in today's class include: how has the Korean family changed in recent years? Why do many Korean elderlies live with their adult children? I'm not saying, you know, like 70–80% of Korean elderlies live with their adult children, but relatively speaking, there is a considerable number of elderlies who do live with their adult children. So we'll try to understand why this is the case. Third, what are the factors for the rising divorce rate in Korea in recent years? And fourth, do some couples live together even if they're unhappily married? If so, why? And so we call it empty shell marriage, but there are other terms like ghost marriage. This is a very Korean term, ghost marriage. And show window couples. Okay? Again, they stay married for the purpose of social phase or for the sake of their children. And I think, at least in the case of Korea, the latter is very true. Okay, characteristics of marriage and family. The first characteristic, most obvious. You know, do Koreans practice monogamy or polygamy? And the answer, of course, is monogamy, right? So Koreans practice monogamy, and again, it's the most obvious form or characteristic. Second, age at first marriage. What do you think is the age at first marriage for men in Korea today? As an ice-breaking question, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, near 30s, late 30s. What is your answer? C, early 30s. Wow. Is it B or D? D. Your answer is correct. D. As of last year, I just got this updated this afternoon. The data just came out today, okay? So, age at first marriage for Korean men was 33.97, or let's just say 34, okay? And that's the highest ever for the country, okay? And what do you think is the age at first marriage for women in Korea today? Early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s? D. Wow, you guys are good. It's 31.5. Again, the highest ever. So you can see, if you think about one of the reasons why fertility rate in Korea is the lowest, one factor is that people are getting married at later age, which gives them less time to have, babies, right? So here's a nice figure. So back in 1960, age of first marriage for men was 25.4. 1960. Okay, for women, 21.6. Okay, but you can see how the age has been increasing. And 2023, 34 for men, 31.5 for women. Okay, and this is from 2016, but as a comparison, you can see how Italy tops the list of countries with, men getting married women getting married at 31.8. That's the age at first marriage. Men, 35. I wonder how things are like now, right? So if anyone could find more updated data like this kind of a figure, you could send it to me, and I'll be very thankful. Trends in average household size. So if you could see, I don't know if you could see the number here, but back in 1970, the average household size was 5.2. But look where it stands now. It's 2.2 as of 2022. Okay? So in about 50 years, the average household size more than halved. Okay? It's dropped from 5.2 in 1970 to 2.2 in 2022. Growth of lone person household. In 1980, only 4.8% of all the households in Korea comprised one-person household. The figure has continuously increased over the years, reaching more than 1/3 of all the households in 2022. So as you can see here, back in 1980, only 4.8% of all the households comprised one-person household, but the proportion has increased to more than 1/3 to 34.5% as of 2022. Okay? So that's why we have terms like solo eating, solo movie going, solo drinking. You've heard of 혼밥, 혼술, right? It's a trend now. It's cool to drink alone, to eat alone, and so on. And sing alone, right? You go to a karaoke on your own, you sing whatever you want. All right, next is increasing trend of staying single. This is another reason why Korea is having the lowest fertility rate, because never mind people, getting married late. What about if you have a lot of people just not getting married? Okay? For example, as of 2022, the percentage of 45 to 54-year-old Korean men and women who remain single amounted to, for men, 16.8%, for women, 7.6%. Why do you think they sort of focus on this age group, 45 to 54? Studies show that people who do not get married by this age bracket never get married. Okay? And it's, as of 2022, 2020, it doesn't look that bad, right? But look at the next slide. You can't really see here, but it's 2045. It's only about 20 years from now. Guess what this future projection looks like? By 2045, just 21 years from now, whopping 36.9% of men in Korea will never get married. I'm talking about men between the age of 45 to 54. More than 1/3 never getting married. What about for women? 26%, more than 1/4 of all women between the age of 45 to 54 will never get married. So it portends a serious problem for the persistence of low fertility in Korea, I would say. Okay? And this is another example of, people not getting married. And this is a proportion of unmarried 40-year-old women so those born in 1944, the proportion of women, of those women born in 1944 who never got married, by the time they turned 40, was only 1.24%. For women born in 1954, that proportion jumped to 2.59. Again, when women born in 1954 turned 40-year-old, the proportion of women who never got married was only 2.59. For women born in 1964, the proportion jumped to 4.23. Those born in 1974, it's double digit now, right? But look at this is not 1984, but 1983. It's already 22% of women never got married. And again, as they get older, the chance of them getting married gets smaller. Okay, so all right. So this is a big trend of the Korean family. Endogamous marriage. You know what endogamy is? Gami is marriage. So endo is within, right? So endogamy means that people marry within the group. So in the old days, it meant marrying within the village, within the tribe. Okay? The opposite is exogamy. You marry outside. Okay? So you marry someone from a different village, or you marry someone from a different tribe, right? So here's the exogamy versus I got them mixed up with endogamy. So exogamy, again, require members or expect members to marry outside the group. And in the past, it has been useful in building alliances between different groups, villages, tribes, or kingdoms. So if you recall, at least in Europe, you know how many kingdoms had these brides and princes marrying, with different the spouses from different kingdoms, right? For alliances, right? So that's an example of exogamy. Other groups this is a marrying within the group. So religious, racial, and ethnic groups generally practice endogamy. In contemporary settings, individuals are generally encouraged to practice endogamy. Marry those with similar backgrounds, including the same race/ethnicity, similar socioeconomic backgrounds, similar cultural backgrounds. Again, I'm talking about Korea. So maybe in your own country, things may be different, where there is no real expectation, right? That you are welcome to marry someone of a different race, a different ethnicity, far different age, whatever the case may be, right? So endogamous marriage in Korea means that you marry someone of similar age, education level, religious and class background, and so on. And parents raise their children to identify with a particular group and discourage marrying someone outside the group. I think I practiced, from my wife's family's perspective, exogamy because she was born and raised in Korea. I was born in Korea, but my family immigrated to Canada when I was little. So when I met her and we fell in love, but her parents were totally against our marriage because there was an 8-year difference. So she's 8 years younger than me. I was at the time practicing Catholic. She was practicing Protestant. And I wanted to take her to Canada, but her parents were dead against the idea of sending her oldest daughter to a foreign country. So guess what happened? She was grounded for dating me. So for a month, not just a day or a week, a month. So she lied to her parents saying, I'm gonna break up with this guy, right? So we finally met and we dated for like 2 months. And I went back to Canada to finish my doctoral degree. And you know, the period from that, when I returned to Canada to finish my degree, I don't think I studied that hard because I was in a hurry to finish my degree, come back to Korea so that I don't lose her. Why? She told her parents that she broke up with me, right? So her parents were making all these arrangements to meet all these guys. Every weekend, she would have a blind date. And I don't know if she was doing this to make me jealous or she was just an honest person, but she would report to me, oh, you know, I met this guy who was a dentist. Oh, last week I met this, you know, and I was so nerve-wracked of the fear of losing her. So anyone who is in a relationship but is always bothered by this person's lack of commitment, all you have to do is make that person jealous. Jealous like this, that person may lose you if the person you care about does not shape up. You know what I'm saying? So the key to successful love is to make the other person feel jealous all the time. Just kidding about that. Anyway, it was not an easy sort of process. So much so that when we finally got married, at the wedding, the wedding place was full of tears because I cried. Not my wife, but I sobbed. It was not like, you know, tears welling up. Sobbed. So it was my wife saying, oh, come on, you know, everything's okay. Anyway, so mate selection is often determined by individuals' assets that is brought to the marriage market. And take a look at this. I don't know if you would agree about this point. Difference in marriage practices between Korea and the West. Korea, in comparison to the West, are marriage considerations still based on material or practical concerns? For example, wealth, job, educational background, family, etc. The West, compared to Korea, are marriage considerations more based on emotion, like feeling, romance, love. I'm not saying that, let's say, people in the West, that's all they care about. I'm just saying, in addition to these, let's say, material concerns, the element that does feature prominently is this sense of love. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, well, then there's a difference that exists. Because if you were to see a typical survey in Korea about top concerns in choosing your partner, you never see love. It just isn't there. It's always job, income, family income, whether the person comes from a broken family or not, how many siblings the person has. But again, I've never seen a survey that asked a person whether love is important or not. So maybe things are different now, but anyway, I think Korea does sort of sees marriage as a sort of something more serious, I guess. Okay, seventh characteristic of family in Korea, I want to talk about birth outside marriage. A question. What proportion of birth in Korea comprises of birth outside marriage? What do you think?
2%.
Wow, good. What about other members of the OECD country?
US is like 30 or 40%. I think it's higher.
Yes, I have the figures for you. OECD average is 41.9%. Korea, 2.4%. Lowest in the world. I don't know if I could say lowest in the world, but at least lowest among the OECD countries. Look at Chile. 75% of all birth comprise of babies born to unmarried mothers. Okay? Next is France, 62.2%. Norway, 58.5%. Sweden, 55%. Denmark, 54%. Where is the US? 40%. And where is Korea again? 2.4%. Why do you think birth outside marriage is so low in Korea? Yeah. Yes, it's stigmatized, it's demonized. How could you have a baby outside birth? Outside marriage. And because of this social milieu, what do you think happens to the children, babies born to single mothers? You could be frank. They get bullied. Well, that would happen if they stayed in Korea. Yes, Korea still sends babies overseas for adoption. And this is one of the very few things I'm very ashamed to be commenting on. Okay? Korea is one of the largest economies in the world. And as you can see, we are very well off economically compared to other countries, especially in Asia, right? And yet, we still send hundreds of babies overseas. Why? These babies are not wanted. That's all I can say. Okay? So, stigma against birth outside marriage in Korea has led to many young single mothers to abandon newborn babies. And do we offer, generous welfare money to single mothers? No. We just offer like $200 a month extra. Yes. And here we go. In 2018, 99.7% of all babies born to single mothers were sent overseas for adoption. 2019, it was 100%. In 2020, 99.6%. So that means like every baby except one, right? The international adoption of South Korean children at first started as a result of a large number of orphan biracial children from the Korean War after 1953. but later included other orphans and deserted children by single mothers and poor families. So here are some, so the total number of international adoptees to this day reportedly totals 200,000. So if you haven't known about the history of international adoption, it's, you know now, right? Up to 200,000 since 1953, okay? Again, maybe back in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, we needed this to help these, you know, orphan children and deserted children, right? But we needed to stop this at least, I would say, 30 years ago, okay? And if the fact that this is continuing to this day is a total embarrassment, okay? And here's, and why do I say compare North Korea? There are a couple of things that North Korea claims to have done better than South Korea. I mean, they, you know, make a lot of noises about how they're better than South Korea, but I have to admit that there are at least two things that North Korea has done better than South Korea. That is, one, North Korea has never sent a single child for international adoption, although it's poorer than South Korea, right? The other one is they prosecuted Japanese collaborators, okay? Do you know what I mean by Japanese collaborators? Japan colonized Korea from 1910 to 1945. It committed a lot of atrocities. It ruled Korea with ruthlessness. And did they do it all by themselves? No, they had these Koreans who collaborated with the Japanese in oppressing Koreans. But when Korea was liberated, the US military government was only concerned with efficiency. So instead of prosecuting the Koreans who worked for the Japanese in suppressing Koreans ruthlessly, they worked for the Americans. Okay? So we still have this painful history of not having prosecuted these very anti-Koreans. Okay? And many Koreans do blame the US for that because, again, for the US, it only cared about efficiency, not about history, not about what Koreans wanted at the time. Okay? Anyway, so this is a picture of babies on the airplane being sent to, mostly at the time, US. Okay? And later to Europe. Okay? But the largest number of adoptees went to the US. There you go. And this is the overseas and domestic adoption in selected years. So you can see how, like in 1985, we had like close to 10,000 adoptees being sent overseas. But the number of adoptees in red color referred to domestic adoption. Okay? So last year, 2022, 142 Koreans were sent to overseas for adoption. In 2020, it was 232. But look at this, just 2010, just what, 13 years ago? More than 1,000 Korean babies were sent overseas. Okay? And I don't know if you have heard of Holt Adoption Agency. You think, they're doing something good? No, they're making tons of money off this. Every baby adopted overseas, they get like $50,000. So they're in the business of making money. Okay? So if there is a bill that tries to ban international adoption, they lobby Korean lawmakers not, to make the bill not to become a law. Okay? So it's an evil organization from what I see. And again, they did good service, maybe up to the 1970s and 80s, but now it's in, again, business of making money. Let me not spend too much time on this. Now, well, before I move on, do you have any questions about any characteristics of the Korean family? So I'm going to talk about the divorce later, but other than divorce, anything you want to know about the characteristics of the Korean family? Okay. Extended family. Wow, it's already 5:52. Extended family, well, I have another quiz or a riddle. What proportion of the Korean elderly live with their adult children, you think? Is it 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50, 50% plus? Why do you get that sort of impression? I mean, if you were to say 40%, is there anything you think you have been impressed? Like your idea of this number, has it been shaped by anything you've been exposed to? Like something you read, or maybe you watched enough Korean dramas to... Okay. The reason I say that is if you watch Korean dramas, like family dramas, they're so misleading because practically every Korean family drama has a grandparents living with their children, right? Which is so untrue, as you can see here. The answer is 20%. Okay? So only 1/5 of elderlies in Korea live with their adult children. Okay? But it's been decreasing. See, you see, in 1994, not too far back, just 30 years ago, is it 30 years ago? Yes. More than half of the elderlies in Korea lived with their adult children, but the proportion dropped to 42% in 2002. It jumped again to 38% in 2008, and it dropped to yet again to 27% in 2018. So I think it'll fall even lower in the next decade or so. Okay, so you know that 20% I think again it's relatively high, right? So maybe in the West, let's say U.S., you will have what, 10%, 5%, okay? So this is again compared to the West, it's high. Then the question is why? Is it because they are just so attached to each other, they are living together, or what? What do you think? Why do Korean elderlies live with their children? Is that by choice, voluntary, or not so? Yes?
I mean, I was going to say they probably don't have the money to live anywhere else because there's not enough welfare money, so they can't afford to live on their own.
Very good. Number one reason. They don't have the economic resources to live on their own. Okay? Or it's the other way around. Adult children do not have enough money to live on their own, so they live with the parents. And in Korea, that is considered okay. Okay? Yes? Okay, so first one was economic consideration. The second is practical consideration. The elderlies living together with their children to take care of the kids. There's another side of practical consideration. When an aging elderly cannot take care of her or himself, they invite their aging parent to come and live with them. So unlike in the West where sending aging parents or immobile aging parent to a nursing home is a sort of an ordinary situation, not the case in Korea. Okay, so we still try to help out as much as we can. Yes, the lady with the pink cat.
I just wanted to say the same thing, that so they're taking care of their elderly parents.
Yes. Thank you. I think I used the over honorific lady. I think it's better to say student with a pink hat cap. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's see what we have here. Factors that figure in the maintenance of extended families. We already mentioned this, economic factor. Second, practical considerations, child care or elderly care. Okay? Third is normative factor, sense of obligation. It's the right thing to do. So even though parents and adult children have enough money to afford their own place to live, they live together because, you know, they want to be nice, especially from the children, right? Fourth one, I call it a mama boy factor. You know what it is, right? Either the children or the parent may want to coincide due to their psychological attachment to each other. It's terrible, right? I mean, if you marry someone and that spouse is attached to his or her parents enough to say, I want to live with my parents, not a good sign, right, for your healthy marriage or happy marriage, right? So I call it mama boy or mama girl. No, it's funny to say mama girl, but mama boy is a very widely used expression. Do you know of any celebrities who is affected by this affective factor? Yeah, or star, someone who is well known. Well, unless you read this, you would not know, right? Do you know Cristiano Ronaldo? He's a famous, probably one of the top soccer player, like top star players in the world. And guess what he said? I got this from a newspaper clip. A journalist asked Cristiano, how do you pronounce his name exactly? Ronaldo. Whoosh. I'll just say CR. Ronaldo. Ronaldo. Okay, a journalist asked Ronaldo, why does your mother still live with you? You know, he's almost like a billionaire. You know, he makes so much money, close to a billionaire, and yet he lives with his mother. Why does your mother still live with you? Why don't you build her a house? Ronaldo replied, my mother raised me and she dedicated her life for me. She would go to sleep hungry just to let me eat. I think they come from a humble background. We had no money at all. She worked 7 days a week and nights as a maid to buy my first shoes so I could be a player. All my success is dedicated to her, and because of her, and as long as she has a life, she will always be my side. She has everything I can give. She is my refuge. There's got to be, how do you pronounce this? Refuge? Refuge? And my greatest gift. So she's very Korean-like. Anyway, this is Ronaldo with his mother. Okay? You know, if you're born in Korea and you're poor, can you become a sports star? No. Because you need money to enroll in all these programs. So that's another tragic aspect of living in Korea. Okay? Who have a higher level of life satisfaction? The elderly who live on their own or elderly who live with their adult children? A or B? The answer is A by only a small, very small margin. That's surprising, right? All right. We'll take a break now. It's 6:02. I'll see you back here at 6:10. We'll have to sort of move on fast. Divorce. There's certain things you just have to know about divorce, and one of them is how the divorce rate is calculated. Okay? First method is simple enough. It's ratio of divorces to marriages. So it's the number of marriages and divorces in a given year. Okay? So for example, if there are 100,000 marriages and 50,000 divorces, the ratio of divorce is 50%. Simple enough, right? That's one method. Second method is called crude divorce rate, and it's divorces per 1,000 population. Okay? So what I mean by 1,000 population, it includes everyone, okay? Including babies, okay? So as of now, we don't really have a more accurate divorce rate, okay? But whether you refer to ratio of divorces to marriages or crude divorce rate, what is evident is that divorce rate is increasing in practically every part of the world. Okay? Facts about divorce. Again, every nation in the world allows its residents to divorce under some conditions. Do you know which countries do not allow divorce? Well, there are 3 countries. One is the Philippines, which is a predominantly Catholic country. You know how Catholicism or the Catholic Church allows annulment of marriage, but not divorce. Okay? Second is Malta. It's a very small country in Europe, I think near Italy. It's a 98% Catholic population, so it follows the Catholic rule. Okay? The third is the Vatican City. Obvious, right? Second fact about divorce is that women are more likely than men to initiate divorce. Did you know about this? Okay. Third, divorce rate has gradually been increasing in many parts of the world. This is ratio of divorce, and as you can see, it was 12% in 1960, but 48% in 2022. So the numbers may not be, accurate, but you can see the trend, right? The same thing with the crude divorce rate. It was 1.01 in 1960 to 2.03 in 2022. So more than doubled in more than 60 years, right? Types of divorce. There are 3 types of divorce. One is no-fault divorce. Second, uncontested divorce. Third, at-fault divorce. No-fault divorce is the type of divorce where you don't have to prove to the court that there is something wrong with your spouse, whether it's violence or adultery. So you don't have to prove that. You just have to say, I cannot stand this guy. That's good enough with the no-fault divorce law. And again, just say you cannot get along with your spouse, and that's good enough to get a divorce. And it's practiced by only like a dozen countries. Okay? So the US is included here, but it depends on which state you live in. Okay? So each state has a different sort of criteria, I guess. But now, I've always considered this. Now, when you want to get married, do you need a permission from the court, or is it just a matter of reporting that you're getting married? You just get a license, right? Now, to get a divorce, why do you need another person's permission? So if you are into human rights, I think, it's my personal opinion, that the way the divorce is made so difficult is, I think, violation of human rights. If you think about it, right? Why do you need to hire expensive lawyers to, get your right to be happy, right? Yes.
I think the problem is that with divorce, often comes separation as well, and the gets to take care of the children, to buy a house together.
Okay, that's even with the no-fault divorce, that's the issue that you have to settle with. And you may need lawyers to get that settled. But the fact, what differentiates no-fault divorce from contested divorce is that you don't have to prove to the court that you find something wrong with your spouse, that you deserve to be free from this marriage, right? Anyway, so that's no-fault divorce law. Second is uncontested divorce. And this is where two sides agree to go their separate ways, okay? And also with the property division and the child custody and all that, both parties agree. Okay, so this is simple enough. At fault divorce is where, again, and this is the kind of a divorce law that exists in most countries. Okay, so of the three, no fault divorce law is available only in a dozen countries. The rest, they still have these two laws: uncontested and at fault divorce. Okay. So at fault divorce refers to a type of divorce in which the spouse who is filing for divorce has to prove to the court or judge a fault on the part of the other spouse. Okay? So this is termed grounds, popularly called fault for divorce. And it's the only way to terminate a marriage. So again, you think about your human rights. If you're not happily married and you don't find this spouse, you don't want to live with that person, but under the at-fault divorce law, you cannot just leave just because you're not happy with the other person. That's not grounds for divorce. Grounds for divorce is that you have to find a fault with the other person. The other person being either abusive, commits an adultery, mistreating, whatever, right? Anyway, questions? So I already asked that question. Now, divorce in Korea. Divorce rates in Korea have been rising noticeably over the years. Nearly 1/3 of marriages end in divorce in Korea. Divorce rates jumped as high as nearly 9 times in the last 50 years. 9 times. Women initiate divorces in about 2/3 of all divorce cases, as mentioned earlier. So you can see, remember the crude divorce rate? That's the number of divorces per 1,000 population. So back in 1970, it was only 0.4 out of 1,000 population. So it's been steadily increasing, and our record is in 2003 when it reached 3.4 per 1,000 population, and it has dropped to around 2 in the last 10 years or so. So last year it was 1.8. Okay, and again, without knowing the crude divorce rate in other countries, you would not know whether Korea's divorce rate is high or low, right? So here we go. Well, before, this is crude divorce rate, and this is the ratio of divorces to marriages. 1970, it was only 3.9%. 1980, only 5.9%. Look, we had our record in 2021, 52.8%. It fell somewhat to 47.7% in 2023. That's, again, proportion of divorces in comparison to the total number of marriages. Okay? Get it? So in both cases, you know that compared to like 50, 40 years ago, divorce rate has increased quite noticeably. Okay? So this is divorces per thousand. So crude divorce rate, at least among the countries here, US the highest at about 3, Korea is second with just above 2. Okay, so that's from 2018. Okay, and this is countries with the highest divorces per thousand population. 2016. Where is Korea? Korea is right here, ranked 25th in the world. Okay, what about some of the countries with the lowest divorce rate? You can imagine that these countries are like roughly like Catholic countries, like Guatemala, Peru, and Islam countries. Okay, Qatar, Ireland, Malta. Malta is there for some reason. Uzbekistan, Mexico, and so on. Okay. So we're talking about the characteristics of divorce in Korea, and the next one is rise in what is called 황혼 이혼 in Korean. It's called twilight divorce. It refers to divorces involving those who have been married for more than 20 years. Twilight divorce. Now, this is where you could help me. If you could find a twilight divorce rate compared to divorce rate of other marriage durations in your country, please send me what you find. Because of this, as of 23 last year, 35.6% of all the divorces in Korea were twilight divorces. And from what I know, that's the highest in the world. Okay? We usually look at, so this is like the length of marriage and divorce rates, or duration of marriage and divorce rates. And this is the durations we typically look at. 0 to 4 years, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and 20 years plus. You get that? When we look at the duration of marriage and divorce rates, we have 5 groupings. 0 to 4 years, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 years plus. And again, you see how back in 1990, the twilight divorce rate was the lowest among these 5 age groups. Not age groups, duration groups. But the number, or the proportion just skyrocketed, and it's the twilight divorce comprises the largest proportion. And from what I know, Korea tops the world. So prove me wrong with some data that you find in your home country. So if you find data in your home country where the age duration of 20 years plus has the highest divorce rate among all these duration brackets, you show it to me, and I have to change what I say about the Korean divorce rate being sort of unique. Okay? So why does this happen? Why do you think Korea has the highest twilight divorce rate in the world? Yes. Okay, that's an excellent answer for the general rise in divorce rate. But if you want to talk about why Koreans stay together for 20 years before they get married, the answer is children. Okay? You know, I cannot imagine a typical American, typical Canadian, unhappily married, but sticking it out for their children, right? For 20 years. Can you imagine? Can anyone from the West imagine that happening to you? You're unhappily married, and you have a child, and you say to yourself, "I'll sacrifice myself for my child for 20 years until the child becomes an adult," and that means when the child enters university. Okay, so again, from what I know, that just does not happen in the West, but here, very common. Okay. Okay, so moving on. Grounds for divorce in Korea. So the first one was the divorce rate has been increasing, right? That's what I've been focusing on, especially among those who have been married for more than 20 years. Now, as for, again, we don't practice no-fault divorce. We have at-fault divorce law, right? And there are 7 grounds for divorce in Korea. Again, 6, sorry. So if you go to the court, and if you're taking your spouse for divorce, and if you have a issue that lies outside these 6, divorce will not be granted. Okay? Again, there are only 6 grounds for divorce in Korea by law. You know what they are? One is adultery. The second is if the spouse deserts you. That's the second reason, second grounds. Third is maltreatment. Okay? Not just oneself, but the in-laws. Okay? So one is maltreatment of oneself. Fourth is maltreatment of in-laws. Fifth, if the death of the spouse is unknown. That's 5th ground. 6, this is the more open. If there exists any other serious cause for making it difficult to continue the marriage. So this is where you may take a case to the court saying, I have to get divorced because of this. Okay? Now, here are some real cases that really happened. And let me know what the ruling was. Again, these are actual examples. Inability to have a baby. You think this person who, wanted to get a divorce got his wish or no? What do you think? How do you think the judge ruled on this case? Yes or no? Yes. Hands up. No. Hands up. What are those students who did not take a vote? Anyway, no. Okay? So that was not grounds enough for divorce. Religious difference, yes or no? Yes. Husband addicted to online games? Yes. Wife not providing adequate care for the family due to her commitment to a religion? Yes. Refusal to perform ancestral ritual? Yes. It's very important to Koreans, right? Wife spending lavishly on cosmetics and fashions? No. Husband who invested a large sum of money without wife's consent and lost? Yes. Wife not being courteous to her father-in-law? No. Husband who is addicted to gambling? Yes. Couples who had no sex for 7 years. Yes. See, something you go, wow, right? Man asking to have sex too often. Yes. Refusal to have sex. No. All right. Here's this really interesting case, right? This really happened in 2017. This woman, a woman was found buried, dead, okay, in this one small town. So the detectives did their work and arrested a friend of this dead woman, and this made headlines because so why did this friend kill this woman? You see, this woman who is accused of killing her friend wanted to divorce her husband, but she could not find any grounds for divorce. So she convinced her friend, very close friend, to have sex with him. Right? Now, why? Now he know if she goes to the court saying that her husband committed an adultery, that's grounds for divorce, right? So that's why she convinced her friend to have sex with her husband. Now, if she just went to court with the divorce case, things would have been fine. But she worried that her friend who had sex with her husband may go around telling what happened. So that's why she killed her. All because of this at-fault divorce law. Okay? Anyway. All right, reasons for the rising divorce rate. Some obvious causes are incompatibility, economic strife, infidelity, verbal or physical abuse, interference from relatives and friends, right? But these factors are universal factors which have been around for centuries and are common to practically every society. So the question is, what are other newly emerged factors which explain the recent rise in divorce rates in Korea? So if this is on the midterm exam, I'm not expecting you to give me these answers, okay? Because again, these are universal factors. They've been around all the time. So to explain the rise in divorce rate in recent years, there are other reasons, other factors, okay? So what are the other factors that I'm looking for? One was mentioned by a student earlier, and what was that? You could repeat what you said earlier. Yes. So the one change is that sort of a growing societal acceptance of divorce. You know, like 30 years ago, people could, who were divorced, they were so ashamed, right? And they were stigmatized, okay? Now, there's definitely more acceptance of a divorce. Okay, that's one. Okay, what else? Hello? Yeah. Okay, to be more specific, growing number of women who are financially independent because more women are working outside the home. So they have money to be self-sufficient. Some feminists argue this much. If every adult woman who is married is financially independent, divorce rate will skyrocket all over the world. Okay? That's how economic dependence makes many women stuck in many unhappy marriages. Okay? So that's second, okay? 2, one more. Before I show you my slides. I hope I could hear someone say this. Oh, should I wait another minute or so, or to create this sense of awkwardness, uneasiness, silence? Who would be workaholic that causes? Anyway, thank you for breaking the silence. All right, moving on. This is not in any particular order. So the first one here I have here is that, well, it's already mentioned, right? More women have become economically self-sufficient. So if they're unhappy with their marriage, because they have the means to be self-sufficient, they sort of, go ahead and get divorced. Second is the changing attitude of Korean women. So I was hoping to hear someone say this, right? Because, again, more women than ever before are educated. They know more about other possibilities. They do not fear getting divorced, because they may see sort of getting divorced as a new opportunity. Okay, so here we go. They become more conscious of their life situations and are aware of other possibilities. So they resort to dissolving instead of tolerating unhappy marriages. Third, if Korean women changed, the opposite is men. Okay, not all men. There are men like me who are... But some men tend to be very, very self-absorbed, right? Not willing to accept how women have changed, right? So some men, not all men, of course. So men who are divorced would be, who would be tied to this point. Unwillingness of some men to accept the changing demands and needs of women. Many Korean men still prefer a married life where the husband does little to help around the house, and the wife plays a supportive, subordinate role as housekeeper and emotional comforter. Many Korean men also prioritize their own parents' and siblings' affairs over those of their wives. Very true. And Korean men, many Korean men, they're married, and yet they socialize with colleagues and friends on a daily basis. This is not an exaggeration. Okay? So if some men do this, what is the result? Sayonara to marriage, of course. But Korean women, more Korean women, demand an egalitarian or equalitarian marriage in which domestic tasks and raising the children are shared responsibilities. Fourth, so this is already mentioned, right? Growing acceptance of divorce in Korean society. So true. Okay? Not to the level of like what's happening in the US. And the level that I'm talking about is this. Even like 30, 40 years ago, you go to an elementary school, right? The kid would say, you know, my stepfather bought this for me, right? Or my stepsister or whatever, right? We're not there yet. We would admit that, you know, like if you come from a family where the parents divorced, if you're asked or if you must, you'll admit to that, right? But you would not openly talk about it, right? Right? Especially at school, okay? It would be sort of a secret, okay? But anyway, and fifth is the growth of individualism, okay? So individualism is the belief that people should seek self-actualization, develop their interests and capacities to the fullest, and seek to fulfill their own needs and desires rather than sacrificing oneself for the well-being of the group. Because individualism is all about me, right? Priority is me. Me, myself, and I, right? That's a very wonderful expression, right? Whereas the collectivism is more of the group, right? And in this context, the family, right? So you sacrifice yourself for the sake of the family, but individualism in the family means that your own happiness matters the most, right? And this is taking roots among many Koreans, especially younger people. Six, the high value placed on romantic love. You know how romance or romantic love is big, right? We live and die. Although we do, placing high value on romantic love means that some Koreans are willing to go their separate ways if they find their marriage dull or loveless. As you can see here, with high value placed on romantic love, people develop unrealistically high expectations for married life. Like, be always loving, full of adventure, be always sexually exciting, always as wonderful as the good moments of dating. But these, marriage is not fiction, it's documentary, as the saying goes, right? It's a reality, right? Anyway, unfortunately, marriage involves putting up with one's partner's differences in interests, taste, and distasteful habits. And I won't list what they may be, right? Other possible factors for the rising divorce rate in Korea. Can anyone think of any other factors that I have not mentioned? Reasons for higher divorce rate in Korea compared to the past, other than the ones I've mentioned, from your observation of Koreans. Drinking? What, drinking too much, or drinking soju makes one person go... Well, in the interest of time, I will just show you what I have. And tell me if you agree. Do you think lack of dating culture has anything to do with higher divorce rate in Korea? See, if you take dating for granted, think again. Because if you date number of people, from breakup, from making up, whatever, you learn how to deal with the opposite sex in the case of heterosexual couples, right? So the more experience you have in dealing with so in the case of heterosexual couples, the opposite sex, you're better able to handle what comes or what could come when you get married. So I know for a fact that in the West, like in the USA, for example, surveys have shown that the number, so surveys do show how many dating partners men had before marriage, how many dating partners women had before marriage. And the number is far higher than the numbers you find in Korea. Dating culture just does not exist. If you ever wonder why, I mean, they're so serious. From what I know, correct me if I'm wrong, in the West, at least in North America, if you're interested, you date. You go, hey, how about go out, you want to go out for a drink, or you want to have dinner? But Koreans think so hard before asking that question. I don't know if that has changed. Yes? So your comment is not about this lack of dating culture, but about this desire, the wish to look for better partner. Okay? Okay.
Like a caveat on that, it's the kind of looking for a better partner as a result of increased accessibility to find partners with, the influx of online dating apps, or just, in the past there might have been limited opportunities to meet people, compared to now you can just access anyone. And so because of that, people kind of have a warped perception of what is available to them.
Okay. Students at Nanjing University, a comment was made where now people have more access to many opportunities to find better partners, or what they perceive to be more desirable partners. Okay, so that may lead to higher divorce rate in Korea. Anyone else? Yes.
We were also talking about that compared to Korea in the Western countries, there are more long-lasting relationships, whereas in Korea they're like shorter, so there's not that much to learn from.
What do you mean, like long lasting? You're talking about before marriage?
Yeah, yeah. Like longer relationships rather than in Korea, it's just like more like over.
Well, I appreciate your point, but I don't know if that could be substantiated. Whether, again, when it comes to the number of dating partners, we have data. Westerners do have more dating partners before getting married. But when it comes to in a relationship, how long the relationship lasts, I don't have any data on that. Okay? But anyway, good, interesting observation. All right? Now I want to go to the last section of today's lecture, and that is what is called empty shell marriage. Have you heard of this before? Empty shell marriage? So, as I mentioned earlier, it's known also as show window couples and ghost couples. Okay? I think we have a way with words here, right? Ghost couples. Because they don't really exist. That's the implication, right? The couples are not real. That's why it's called ghost couples. So, number of empty shell marriages in Korea or elsewhere is never known. We don't really ask people, are you in an empty shell marriage? We don't ask that, right? So we don't really know the number, but it is sort of believed that the number of people living in empty shell marriage is rather high, okay? As indicated by, among others, a high divorce rate among those who have been married for more than 20 years. And so what are the characteristics of empty shell marriages? First, they feel no strong attachment to each other. It's understandable, right? Because you're You're in it because of certain ulterior motive, which may be, for the sake of the children. So they don't feel strong attachment to each other. Spouses enjoy few activities together. They just rarely spend time together. They come and go, but not much else. Spouses seldom display pleasure in being in each other's company. Makes sense, right? If you're in an unhappy marriage, would you want to be with that person all the time or as little as possible? Fourth, there is little fun or laughter, and the spouses do not share their problems or experiences with each other. I hope none of you is like saying, "Oh, that's my parents." There is little spontaneous expression of affection. Okay? Sexual relations are almost non-existent, if any, between the spouses. And also, as the spouses are highly aware of each other's weaknesses and vulnerable points, they manage to mention these areas frequently in order to hurt each other. Lastly, children of empty shell marriages are often starved for love, or they receive the love that would otherwise go to the spouse. So if you find any mother who is so loving of their child, it's possible that she is devoting all of her love to the child because she doesn't love her husband to be like sharing her love. You know what I'm saying? So the child is getting all the attention and love from the mother who is not sort of showing any affection to her husband, right? Then the question is, why do couples remain in empty shell marriages? Well, the number one reason was already sort of mentioned in passing. Couples, especially mothers, believe that ending the marriage would harm the children. This is, I would say, number one reason for empty shell marriage. Again, it just does not happen in the West, from what I know, right? Of course, there are exceptions. Second, outward appearances. So to avoid negative reactions of relatives, friends, and others, they stay in unhappy marriage. Third, couples may believe, especially those who are affluent, loveless marriage is preferable to divorce and to the uncertainty of remarriage or uncertainty of remaining divorced. Investment reasons. So husband and wife may have a luxurious home and other property that they do not want to lose by parting. Fifth, the lack of financial independence, typically that of the wife. This financial independence or dependence, just to give you an idea as to how important that is. Studies after studies all over the world, women who are abused by their husbands, they eventually go back. Many of them go back to their husbands. And who are they? They are financially dependent on their husbands. Okay? So financial independence matters a lot in how you handle an unhappy marriage. 6, the fear of loneliness. 7th, couples may believe that getting a divorce is morally wrong. So this applies to those who are religious, right? That no matter how unhappy you're in your marriage, You may take it as a God's test of your perseverance or your faith, right? You know how in the case of Christianity, it teaches you that you know God throws many obstacles to your faith, and by overcoming all those obstacles, you become a good Christian, right? All right. That's all I have for you. Do you have any questions or comments on what has transpired this afternoon?